What's happening? Everybody, welcome. This is Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio, episode 593. Today, Andrew and I are talking about whether experience and progress are the same thing. It's going to be a fun conversation. We haven't had it yet, but I know it's going to be a fun conversation. I'm Jeremy Lesniak, host for the show, joined by co-host Andrew Adams. And here at Whistlekick, we love martial arts. We love traditional martial arts. That's why we do what we do, and you can see what we do at whistlekick.com. It's all in support of the traditional arts, and you're going to find a number of things over there at that website. One of them is our store. If you find stuff in there that you want to buy, from training programs to shirts to equipment, whatever, use the code podcast15. It's going to save you 15% off and helps us cover our expenses. Everything for the show is on its own website, whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. We bring you this show twice a week in audio, some episodes like this one in video. And the goal of the show and Whistlekick overall is to connect, educate, and entertain traditional martial artists throughout the world. If you want to support the work that we do, there are lots of ways you can do that. You can make a purchase. You can share an episode. Follow us on social media. We're at Whistlekick everywhere. You can tell a friend about us, pick up one of our books on Amazon, leave a review for this podcast or something somewhere, or support us on Patreon. Patreon.com, patreon.com/whistlekick. It's the place to go for that. You can support us monthly with as little as $2. At $5, you get exclusive audio. At $10, exclusive video. At $25, you get book drafts and courses. You get all kinds of stuff. We give you, if you're going to give us a little bit of money, we're going to give you way more back. That's how we do things at Whistlekick. What have I put up recently? I did a blocking drill. All you need is a door frame.
Cool.
I'm constantly coming up with new drills that people can do at home that will make them better, because I find that fun. It's an interesting challenge. Enough of that, though. Let's talk about this question. Now, this question of experience versus progress. This wasn't something you came up with. Not that you're not capable of coming up with something insightful and poignant to talk about, but this came from somebody else. So let's make sure we give them credit.
Yeah. So this topic was actually given to us by Gabe.
Shout out to Gabe.
Yeah, from Whistlekick Live fame.
Yeah.
So
very famous.
Yeah. So his question, his topic.
People who watch that show. That was a fun show. We've retired that show. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah, we're really sad.
Okay.
But his comment was, I've heard it said that you can do something for 20 years, but not have 20 years of experience. You might only have 1 year of experience 20 times. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what 20 years of experience looks like compared to 1 year of experience 20 times.
Yeah. So at the risk of oversimplifying this and making it a really short episode, I'm thinking of this question in terms of farming or gardening. A garden is something that is annual for people who plant gardens. And most people who plant gardens tend to plant more or less the same crops. Let's pretend you are planting the same crops. Let's say I plant tomatoes and corn and peas. Okay. Here's the difference as it relates to gardening with that question. Putting the tomatoes in the same place every year, knowing that every year they're going to get decimated by hornworms, and refusing to do anything about it, and just lamenting that the tomatoes don't grow well, but getting, let's say, a lot of corn and peas from other spots, that's the same thing year after year. That's 20 examples of 1 year of experience. 20 years of experience are, hey, if I put the tomatoes over here and put the corn here instead, I don't have those problems. And continuing to develop my garden plan such that I increase my yields every year and get better and better and better over time, that's 20 years of experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's I don't want to say oversimplified, but that's a simple way to think of it.
It's probably oversimplified because there's far more nuance there. You've got environmental concerns. Some years are going to be better than others, but I think the heart of it, whether we're talking about gardening or martial arts or anything else, is, are you iterating on what you have done and progressing? Are you finding the opportunities to do things differently and thus better? Because remember, you cannot have progress without change. If you train the exact same way you've always done, you will have the same results. And another non-martial arts example that I see that bugs me, I will see people lift weights at the gym, uh, and they do the same exercises in the same order with the same weights and the same repetitions every time they go in. And they get great results for maybe 6 months, maybe 12, and then they plateau
Mm-hmm.
and they don't get anything different out of it because their body has adapted. If you want to get different results, you have to have different input, whether it's lifting weights or gardening or martial arts.
Yep. I think there's something to be said, though. For progress, you do need that change. But having said that, you also, for progress, you need that repetition as well. I think that this question is implying that the way that's worded in terms of 1 year of experience 20 times, that's saying that what you did for 1 year is exactly what you're going to do the next year. Well, maybe that's true. I highly doubt it. But it's not like you do your form once and then you're done. You're going to do that a lot, right? But even if you do set things for 1 year and then you do the exact same things the next year, that's still progress. And in fact, I would go so far as to say if you do one thing for 1 year and you do something totally different martial art wise in year 2, something totally different in year 3, something totally different in year 4, by the time you've got 20 years, what you learned in year 1 is not going to be nearly as valuable or good to you, or you're not going to be as good at it
Sure, I
as
agree.
someone who has practiced it consistently.
Now, I'm not suggesting that you are doing something completely different. I'm saying, let's say, if you want to, let's take an example of a form, a more or less, not quite universal martial arts experience, but uh,
Fairly.
common enough that I think everyone can wrap their mind around it. If I do my form the same way, it does not progress. But if I am challenging myself with deeper stances or faster or more powerful or refining technique, I could do that form 5 times every day and not change the way I do it at all and
Mhm,
not get better, just get really consistent
mhm,
at that level of quality of that form. Or I can find new ways to do that form as I'm doing it 5 times every day, challenging my ability or understanding or whatever of that form, and then it progresses.
mhm.
Right. So if we I like to use the example of resistance training because there are multiple very clear objective variables. The number of sets, the number of repetitions, the amount of weight, the speed at which I do the movement, the technique with which I do the movement.
Yeah, lots
Those
of
are,
variables.
yeah, you could change out of, I think I had 5, 6 there. I could change one of them, keep the others exactly the same, and see progress.
Mhm.
And eventually that progress is going to wear out. I'm not going to see progress. I'm going to have to change another variable. And quite often, we change too many variables. I've trained in this style for a year. I'm going to go do this completely different style over here. That gets you 20 iterations of 1 year of experience.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. You've got to you've got to stick with something long enough to really learn it. And I don't want this to transition to don't leave your. That's not what I'm talking about. Don't
Right.
cross train in other things. But I do think there is a difference between sticking with one thing and practicing it for 20 years as opposed to 20 things that you've practiced for a year.
Yeah. We did an episode on, and by we, I this was before you would join the show, but mastery versus diversity.
Mm.
And those are opposite ends of the spectrum. If I train in a, if I want to be the best at throwing back fists I can be, the only thing I'm going to do is throw back fists. Everything that I do that is not a back fist or related to my stance or other things that help my back fist is wasteful towards that goal. But if I want to be a well-rounded martial artist, I have to incorporate some other things. If I want to be a very well-rounded martial artist, I start heading in the direction of diversity on the spectrum. And now I'm doing a bunch of different things. So that's where that 20 years of training versus 20 times 1 year of training starts to become a little clearer. Were you looking up the episode number?
261.
I saw your eyes go down. I had a feeling. And neither is wrong. It depends on what's important to you.
What's your goal?
What is your goal? Right. If you, I don't think I have to say more than that, right? There are different ways to look at this problem. The problem being, how do I spend my training time?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there are wrong ways. The only way it's wrong is if you are training in a way that does not serve your goal.
Absolutely. And everyone's goal is different.
Yep.
And that's okay. The expression that comes to mind, which I'm sure everyone has heard, is jack of all trades, master of none.
Sure.
Some people want that, and that's absolutely great.
Yep.
If that's what they're looking for,
Yeah, my consulting business model is pretty much based around that. If I find a hole in what I can advise people on, I work on that. There's something I'm working on right now that I'm not very good at, and I'm getting better. And if you read between the lines, you'll probably figure out what that is as you listen to this show over the next few months, because I've made some changes on some things. Very subtle, but you'll see it. Is there a case to be made? Are there times where someone may not realize, and I don't know if this is true, but let's follow this thread. Are there times where someone may not realize that their approach to training is incongruent with their goal?
Well, I think if they don't have the self wherewithal to determine what their goal is, then absolutely, and that's something you have to internalize and figure out for yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know too that where someone ends up on this spectrum of mastery versus diversity is going to impact how they teach. And if your goal is different than their goal, that may be an example of where an instructor doesn't work for you. And in fact, I would guess that most of the time when an instructor and a student don't jive, it is because of a disconnect of where they want to be relatively on that diversity versus mastery scale.
Which would then involve a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay. I have trained at schools that want to do something different every single time. I'm like, but what about the 400 things that we did last week that I don't know how to do well yet?
Mm-hmm.
And I've trained at other schools that want to do the same thing every single class until everybody's perfect at it, and my eyes are bleeding.
Yeah, and you've got to figure out what is right for you.
Yeah, and that's important. There is the theme of this show in a nutshell. Figure out your why and lead from there.
That's a great quote. Yeah.
We should write that one down. Here, I'm going to write that one down. Keep talking. Talk while I write that.
Yeah, and I would say don't be afraid to have those types of conversations. With yourself, right? Maybe not out loud. People will look at you funny, but don't be afraid to think about that stuff, and don't be afraid to have those conversations with your instructor too.
I agree. Anything else that we should say? Do you think we answered Gabe's question?
I think only Gabe can truly tell us, so we'll have to wait and see what he says, but I think so. Right.
Well, hopefully. Gabe, if we didn't, we're going to make you come on the show. We're going to let you come on the show. We're going to let you and make you. I don't know. We'll figure it out. He's been on the show.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. And if you're out there, if you're listening or watching this episode, Andrew and I love responding to inquiries from you all, because it means that at least one person is going to really be pumped on the subject. So don't be afraid to write in or to comment, in any of the variety of ways that you can do so. And we'll take your questions, your comments. If you want to see a transcript for this episode, for other episodes, go to whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. This one will be on YouTube as well. We're trying to get more video over on YouTube, so make sure you head on over there, subscribe. If you search for Whistlekick on YouTube, you can't help but find us. I mean, we're the only Whistlekick out there. And remember, every episode rather has its own page with links and stuff like that. So, I don't think there's. What did you say? It was 261.
Yes, 261.
So episode 261 on diversity versus mastery. And if you're willing to support us and the work that we're doing, all this content that we bring you for free, you've got a lot of options. You can share an episode, leave a review, tell a friend, or contribute to our Patreon, patreon.com/whistlekick. Don't forget, we designed this amazing strength and conditioning program for martial artists, and you can do it at home with no equipment. Grab it at whistlekick.com. Don't forget the code podcast15. It's going to get 15% off that program or anything else in there. If you have guest suggestions, topic suggestions, we want to hear them. And our social media, which we put a lot into, it's at whistlekick. My personal email, jeremy@whistlekick.com. If you want to write to Andrew, write to me and I'll forward it on to him instead of giving you a bunch of email addresses. Unless you want to. Andrew@whistlekickmartialartsradio.com.
Works for me.
All right, let's close it up. Until next time, train hard, smile, and have a great day.